An insider has dropped a surprising trade update for the New York Islanders, and what happens next will determine the future of this franchise. Recently, Noah Dobson asked the New York Islanders for $11 million, and we now have reports that the Islanders are shopping to see what they can get in return for the star defenseman. We're going to break it all down and really talk about if it makes sense for the Islanders to trade Noah Dobson. But before we get to that, I want to quickly point out that 65% of you who watch these videos have not yet subscribed to the channel. So if you're an Islander fan, you want more Islanders content just like this, what are you waiting for? Hit subscribe. It's free. Now let's really talk about this Noah Dobson stuff. We talked about it yesterday when it first leaked out that he was looking for $11 million, or at least that was his asking price on a contract to kind of negotiate down. And I was a bit heated, and now I am a bit cooler, and we're going to really discuss if this makes sense to the Islanders and really what is going on. From Elliotte Friedman's podcast today, which I highly recommend you listen to if you have the time. It is some of the best hockey content out there. He said, I think the Islanders are investigating all possibilities. I think they know he's going to be an 8-figure guy, so they have to decide, are we willing to pay him that, or is somebody else going to pay him that? And the biggest takeaway of this quote is the 8-figure guy, meaning that Elliotte Friedman is under the impression that if these negotiations go through, while he might not be getting $11 million, he thinks it's going to be closer to $10 million for Noah Dobson, while fans like me have been hoping that this number would be more around 8 and maybe even 9. But it's sounding more and more like this is going to be a $10 million contract for Noah Dobson. And I just want to start this off by saying Mathew Barzal is doing the right thing by seeing what's out there for this player. Noah Dobson, while a very valuable defenseman, and I'm going to talk about why I think he is so valuable and they shouldn't just trade him for the sake of trading him, that's a lot of money, and he is not a type of player who I would say is untouchable. So in any case, for the right offer, I think you do move off of Noah Dobson. And there are going to be a lot of teams interested because this is such a rare player. In fact, for this video, I was looking for trades similar to players like Noah Dobson to try to get an example of what a trade looks like. And I really could not find any defensemen who were traded in the sense where Noah Dobson is 25-year-old, 1 year off of his best season. You really could not find an example. You find a lot of examples of young 21-year-old defensemen who have a lot of upside getting traded, but Noah Dobson already having that season under his belt makes this even more interesting. And just looking at his stats, I mean, we know the stats for Noah Dobson. I know a lot of Islander fans are frustrated by his play last year. And me, I'm a big Noah Dobson fan. I have the jersey behind me. But I'll admit, Noah Dobson really struggled at points last year. I will say, and this is important to note, I think it looked worse than it actually was. Like, Noah Dobson, when he has a defensive breakdown, it looks really bad. But overall, I don't think he's having as much as other defensemen, especially when you consider how many minutes he plays. And in addition, one thing you have to factor in with Noah Dobson is how much time he spends in the offensive zone, because when it comes to transition, he actually is a really strong defenseman, whether you look at the metrics, things like that. But just the stats last year did not pass for the standard that Noah Dobson has set for himself. Before last year, in the past 3 seasons, Noah Dobson has had 51 points in 49, then 70. And then last year, he only had 39. Yes, he did get hurt. He missed 10 games. Would have likely missed more if it was not for the Four Nations face-off. But still, Noah Dobson did not have the best year. And as a result, it's really hard to argue paying him $10 million. But at the same time, you also have to keep in mind, this is a player, defensemen who can score 70 points do not fall off of trees. And the one thing that works for the Islanders in this consideration and why this is such a unique situation is typically you don't see players like this traded because it's so hard to find offensive defensemen who also have a two-way game. Because Noah Dobson does have a two-way game. I know it's not perfect. He makes a lot of mistakes, but he is considered a two-way defender. That's why he plays 23, 24 minutes, and he's not 17 minutes and also playing power play time, such as a Tony DeAngelo. But the Islanders have the opportunity to draft that first overall in this draft. As a result, well, I don't want to say Noah Dobson is expendable because I don't think that's the right word. I think if you could keep this player, you do keep this player. But if it's going to cost the Islanders $10 million, I really do think they have to consider trading Noah Dobson. And we'll see what's out there for the New York Islanders. I think that's why it's good that Mathew Barzal is seeing what's out there. He can look around the teams in the NHL, and if the offers aren't good, he can lock Noah Dobson up and know that he has the value that he wants. But if there are trade options out there, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit, I think you really have to consider it, because one thing that people are not talking enough about when it comes to the Islanders is this is a team that has spent a lot of money on defense. Ryan Pulock making $6 million, Pelech 5.7, Scott Mayfield 3.5. And in addition, now we're talking about potentially paying Noah Dobson $10 million, and Alex Romanov is likely going to need a $5-6 million contract. This is going to be the most expensive, if we keep everyone, it's going to be the most expensive defense in the entire NHL. And the issue with that is, I'm all for spending a lot of money on your defense, especially if you have an elite defense. The Islanders' defense last season was not elite. They had more breakdowns in their zone than any other team in the league, and especially when you're considering that Ilya Sorokin was in net for the majority of those games. The amount of times they left him out to dry, this is not good. And at $17 million, you can accept this defense, but if it's going to be $33 million, at least $33 million for Pulock, Pelech, Mayfield, Dobson, and Romanov, that is not going to cut it for the New York Islanders. Yes, I do think you can look at moving a guy. Adam Pelech, really on this list, is the only guy who's making a lot of money who has not full trade protection. Pulock has 2 more years of trade protection. I was under the impression that he could be traded next season, but he has 2 more years of full trade protection before he gets partial trade protection for 3 more seasons. That contract is currently not aging very well. Hopefully he can have a bounce back. But yes, you can move Pelech. It does not have to be Dobson, but when you're talking about this defense, what the Islanders cannot do is spend $33 million on what is, at this point, an average defense in the NHL. I don't want to say it's bad, because it's not bad, but it's definitely not $33 million good. Now, with Noah Dobson, one of the things you have to consider is if he bounces back, and this really is a huge decision for the Islanders' future. I know a lot of fans are furious with the season that Noah Dobson had last year, and that's valid. Noah Dobson really failed the Islanders last year, and we can talk about a lot of players. Matt Barzal missing so many games really prevented the Islanders from making the playoffs. But I think another player who really prevented this team from making the playoffs was Noah Dobson. If you take a thought and really think about how the Islanders made the playoffs the year before, and for a large portion of that season, especially when guys like Adam Pelech and Ryan Pulock got injured, they made it off the back of Noah Dobson. They got injured, and Noah Dobson took a huge step up, playing both defensively and offensively. It was incredible to watch. And this year, he just did not have that level. I don't know if he was trying to do too much, what was going on, but clearly, Noah Dobson did not seem like the same player. And that was confusing, considering no injuries happened, and it's not like he's regressing in the sense where his body is too old. Noah Dobson is 25 years old, which what makes him such a valuable defenseman. You lock him up for the next 8 years, you're going to have a good defenseman for all 8 years on that contract. It's not like a situation where you're paying a player and the last 3 or 4 years you're kind of hoping that they can just kind of hold it together. Noah Dobson is going to still be effective throughout this contract if he plays the way we know he can. The thing is, after last season, you got to question whether or not he can play that way consistently, which is why I think if the Islanders can find a trade for Noah Dobson, I think Darsh really has to consider. And now I emphasize, it has to be a good trade. You're not just trading this guy for a draft pick, even if it can potentially be James Higgins. You don't trade a player like Noah Dobson, who's had 70 points in the NHL in one season, for a prospect. You're not going to win that trade. One player we talked about in the past who I think makes a ton of sense. I think it makes a ton of sense for the Stars, but I don't know if this is what they're looking for, and especially with Noah Dobson asking for $10 million, perhaps this is not a fit for them. But if they can get a player like Jason Robertson, it doesn't have to be Jason Robertson, but if they can get a player like this, a player who scored 80 points in multiple seasons, somebody who scored 40 goals in the NHL, I think this is what the Islanders have to look for. In the video earlier today, we actually talked about another player who isn't quite on this level, and I would not be comfortable trading Noah Dobson straight up for this player, is JJ Peterka. Well, I don't think he's good enough to directly command Noah Dobson. I mean, again, JJ Peterka, his best season in the NHL, he had 68 points. Noah Dobson's best season is 70 points as a defenseman. So obviously, JJ Peterka is not as good as a player as Noah Dobson, but I think a package involving a player like this, somebody who can score, is something the Islanders have to consider. But there has to be a player who can score now, a player who's going to be under team control, and a player who is young. Other than that, I think even if you're overpaying him, I think you're better off keeping Noah Dobson if you can't land a player like one of these. Again, it doesn't have to be one of these two players, but something like this is what you have to land in a trade for Noah Dobson, at least in my opinion. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this. Do you think Noah Dobson is going to get traded by the Islanders, or do you all think this is just part of negotiation? I do think there is a very realistic scenario, and perhaps the most likely scenario is the Islanders and Noah Dobson eventually settle on a deal probably around $9.5 million, which is a bit more than I would like to pay, but I'd rather pay that money than get a return that's disappointing for a player who has the potential to be as game-breaking as Noah Dobson. But I'd love to know your thoughts on this in the comments below. I love having hockey conversations with you guys, as always. If you have not already subscribed to the channel, what are you waiting for? Hit subscribe right now. My name is Patrick Nilan. Catch you in the next episode of Isles Digest. If you want to know more about JJ Peterka, we actually talked about him earlier, so check that video out. It'll be linked right here. Catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Let's go, Islanders.